Mada, tell us a bit about yourself, please, and how did you get involved in the startup world? What attracted you to the idea of being a startup founder?
Yeah.
I don't know. Were you thinking about this before your studies and leaving for the States? Was it something on your radar?
Definitely not. I don't think I could ever dream of I think sometimes life takes you in places that you don't expect. If you take opportunities that come to you. And I think I was just very lucky to have some of those opportunities. I think my mom really wanted me to go and study in the States, and she read that if you were good at math and you had some prizes at Olympiads and stuff, you could get a full scholarship, so I applied to 25 colleges. It was something crazy looking back. And I went to the States. I went to study, and I think my dream was still to work for a big company and with a brand that I knew. And I think senior year in college, I took an entrepreneurship course, but it felt more like a game. Like, oh, I'm just doing this course, but it's not like I will ever start a company. Like, it's just something I'm doing, but I wouldn't really this is not real. It's like, and then I went and worked for Siemens Medical as a software developer. And then, my visa got denied. So I ended up having to either leave the US or go to school. So I went to school, and I think I was trying to look for programs that were only 1 year because it's harder to get scholarships for a master's. So I had to conserve money. So I ended up at Stanford, which I think definitely changed, just the way coming to the States and going to Cornell changed one trajectory. I think going to Stanford, had I gone to a different master's, probably I would be on a very different path. But I think Stanford is extremely entrepreneurial. The design school was getting started, and somehow this course looked cool, and I applied to it, and I got in. And we had all the startups come, and and there was this one professor who was also an investor called Michael Deering. And I remember the moment when I decided I was going to start a company. I was walking with him. I think I was taking a second course from him, and I was helping him take stuff to his car after the course. And I remember telling him, I'm like, man, it's so cool working with these startups. I would never be able to start a company. And it's so amazing to see these people. And and I've told the story before, but he stopped and put the stuff down and looked into my eyes and was like, Mada, which is Mada in English. Mada is like, if you don't, who do you think will? I'm like, what? It's like, you're at Stanford, you're smart, you're doing great things. Like, who else will start companies if not you? And that was definitely the moment when I was like, I'm going to start a company one day. And, it took some time. Did not start right after. I ended up going into consulting, and I went to work for a startup, then I went to business school. There was a journey. But I started thinking about it in that moment. I don't think beforehand I ever considered that it would be me.
Do you recommend this kind of journey? Let's keep saying, calling this, to a wannabe entrepreneur, or to, I don't know, someone that just graduating from high school, from college.
Yeah.
Is it an experience worth taking to get to where you need to be, or I don't know?
I think it's a fine line, especially for your first company. I think it's different once you've started one, and even if you failed or found success, I think it's easier the second time. But I think for your first journey, you need it's a balance between experience and naivety. I think if you go in knowing how hard it's going to be, I don't understand why anyone would do this. I think you actually have to be a little bit clueless to be able to take the jump. But I think if you're too clueless, your chances of success, it's unfortunate that there's so many stories. Well, maybe not so many, but there's a few stories of people who dropped out of college and started companies. I think they're actually the outliers. I think the real companies, the majority of companies, they get started by people in their 30s and 40s. That being said, I mean, I think even though I think your chances of success are a lot lower if you try starting something out of college, you will grow and so much more than, you know, a job in a company. So if you think you can get funding and do it, I mean, why not? But I do think that actually, if you're looking at like the most, like I think going and working in a successful startup, going and working in a bigger company, that can help you learn and can also help you, you know, the best companies, including Branch, are started from ideas and problems you had yourself. And I think if you've never been in the workforce, I think then you can only like start consumer companies. And consumer companies are a little bit like playing the roulette. You can win really big, but the chances of success are quite low. Versus, you know, B2B companies are more like blackjack. You don't win as much money, but you have much higher chances of success. So,
if you were today, with all your experience during these years, to take the same journey, would you still make it, or I don't know, would you cut some steps?
I'm leaving Branch and I'm going to start a new company. I am going to do the journey one more time. And yes, I will probably do things differently. I probably won't start with a free product and start the company with people I know and probably try to raise less money. There's a lot of, but you know, I thought I would like never start a company again, but somehow it's addicting. It's very hard. I can't imagine doing anything else.
As a Romanian startup founder, co-founder in the States, how do you see the ecosystem here? Were you keeping an eye on what's happening here during these years?
Probably not enough, you know, to be honest. I'm starting to get more involved now that I have more time. So I've started helping out and meeting with people. But Endeavor introduced it to me, and Bogdan, who organized this conference, sometimes introduces me to people. So I've met, and I think I've met founders. I think the hardest thing with startups starting here is the market. I think it's just Europe is a very challenging market in general. It's extremely fragmented. People behave differently. People want things in their own language, and each market itself is not big enough. I think when you're in the States, the ecosystem there is a lot more evolved because the market is so big. So US is a fairly large homogeneous market. It's not obviously not exactly homogeneous, but it's people behave fairly similarly. So if you get product market fit, you already have like a really large market that you can sell into. So, and I think it seems like the investor community and stuff, everything is just the way people buy software is a lot less relationship based and a lot more value based. People put like business first and relationship second. And in Europe, I've noticed that it's a lot more like, oh, if I know you, maybe I'll buy a product, and it just feels like less based on the value that you can bring a business. And so the work ethic, I would say, from my experience, seems to be much stronger in the States. People work a lot harder. You know, people say that they live to work instead of work to live, like here, which has its own issues with mental health, but it is easier to do business, I would say.
If you think that Branch would have grown to this point if it would have been a company, in your case, started in Romania?
No, definitely not. No, I don't think so. I think a lot of the money we got and the support, it's all like, it's a fairly incestuous, like all our VCs. I remember there was one point I was sitting in a board meeting and I was like, oh my God, everyone in this room went to Stanford GSB. I'm like, wow, okay. Like, it's people tend to trust the brands they know, and there's a lot more money there. And I don't know. I don't think so. But to be fully honest, I've never I've never held a job in Romania. I went to college there. So can I tell you for sure? Maybe it would have. I don't really know. I personally don't think even if we started in a different place in the States, we would have grown to where we are. I think being in Silicon Valley, all our early customers were friends and, like people who gave us a shot because they knew us. And we were a tough thing to sell. We're like not the easiest. We're in a hard market. We were in the critical path of an app. So I think those early customers, it was all based on like the fact that we had gone to Stanford and we were, from good schools and we worked for good companies. Like I think some of that, people don't want to go and do the research on you. So if they see, like people always say that it's much harder to get into Stanford than to graduate from Stanford. And it doesn't even matter what your GPA is. It's just like, it's easier to get a job after because someone doesn't have to do the work of researching, like, are you a good person? Because someone else who admitted you into this college did the work for them. So I think it's easier when you have those things. Is it impossible to do if you don't have them? No, I know companies, but it definitely makes it easier. So is it possible that Branch would have been as big if we started in Romania? It's possible, but it's a lot less likely, I would say.
And speaking about this, in our interview in 2016, you said that you're very close to failure. You're months away from it, with a life remaining zero poster. Now Branch is valued at the last time I checked, 4 billion.
Yeah.
What do you think that was your winning business model in the end? I mean, what do you think that helped you guys to get to this point? And
I think we
not only in investment but also in revenues, in clients, in everything.
I think we just worked really hard. Some businesses are in easier markets. We did not pick an easy market. I think Branch it's a hard sell. It's a complicated sell. You need a lot of customer support. I would say it was grit. Like we had so much grit and we just worked so hard. I think it had its own toll on our mental health, and it wasn't like easy. But I would say that's we were just very, very determined and we made it happen. People talk a lot about how I don't want to tell people my idea because they're going to steal it. There are so many ideas in this world. It's all about execution. And I think execution is extremely hard. And I think we just like really were good and worked really, like our investors. I remember once I was on some panel, it was like, the Branch founders are the hardest working. I was like, man, I don't know if I want to be known for that, but it is what it is.
Can you tell us a bit about the reasons why you're leaving?
I mean, it's like a company, it's not that different than a child. I think obviously it's not a human, but you build a company and in the early days it's your baby. And then, you hire new executives and the child grows up and it has a mind of its own. And I think I think people are surprised that we as founders stayed so long at Branch. I think usually founders leave after 5-7 years and we stay for 10. So I think it's time for a new journey. I think we're all going to stay fairly involved, and I still own a big portion of the company, and it's always going to be a company that I'm always going to make intros and care about. But I think, 10 years, a decade is a good chapter, and I think it would be cool to try something new and go for a new chapter in my life, right? So,
are you changing? I don't know. Are you building a health company? I don't know.
No,
just as a vertical, random
marketing
vertical.
Tech. Yeah, no. I mean, it's hard. I think if a space, but I'm going after a different persona and different customer profile, but it's still in marketing because I think I really understand that's like my life is marketing and B2B, and it's still going to be a B2B company, and I think it takes a different breed of founder to build a consumer company. I don't know if that's what I excel at.
What would you say to Romanian startup founders or wannabe startup founders that dream of making it big in the US?
To move there, I think it's very hard to build a company going after a market if you're not in the market. I think you have to be there and be surrounded by the people, and like Silicon Valley is very much like people come from all over and it's a melting pot, and it's one of the most accepting, wonderful places to be in. So I don't think you come in and you become part of the community, and I think even if you come as a tourist and meet people, and then I think I think it's really hard to build a company, and I think it was hard for us to build a company in India. We had to open an office there and go there and be there and really understand that our product needs to be different for the Indian market. So I think even when you pick a market, I think you have to be in that market as much as possible, hire people in that market to actually be able to own that market.
What title would you give to a documentary about Romanian startups?
The next wave.